It is time for some more Common Knowledge, the show where I take a look at 10 common Magic the Gathering cards and tell you are they any good in the Pauper format or not. And most of them aren't because they're bad common cards. But sometimes we get good cards. Is Rumbling Century one of them? 3 and double white for a 3/6 giant, and when this creature enters, you scry 1. That is so normal and not particularly good. 5 mana for a 3/6. I mean, it can block all day, I suppose. But 5 mana, 3 power, you get a scry off it? At least let me draw a card at that point. No, I don't like this. I will give it a 1.6. Pretty bad. Fearsome Temper is 2 and a red for an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has 2 and has, when you pay 2 and a red, target creature can't block this creature this turn. Ugh. 3 mana for +2/+2 of power and toughness is not a very good deal. And then having to pay this spell's cost again and again and again to make one single creature not be able to block this guy. It's not even the target creature can't block. That would be also still too expensive. But if it was target creature can't block and now you have a big wide board of things and that guy can't block any of them, maybe. But when it's just target creature can't block this one guy, for the most part, your opponent's going to go, okay, well, I've got this other guy who could block it, or that guy can at least block this other dude. Like, I'll be fine. That's not a very tempting thing for me. I don't like this card either. I will give this thing a 1.8. I think it's a bit of a trap. Let's see if we can get something halfway decent. It's pacifism. I love pacifism. I'm almost positive we've done pacifism on the show before. I kind of just want to do pacifism again. Okay, we'll do pacifism. If we're doing pacifism, this is not the right art. It's just fine art, but there's lots of good pacifisms out there. I like this one, which is in Foundations, but it's from Ikoria. Yeah, that's the Ikoria art. But you got, this is the one. Battle Bond is not specifically the one, though. I want, this one is pretty good, too, with a chroma. But you got to get the one with Grack, and that comes from the original Mirage, which I think is still the best one. But I remember it mostly as the 10th edition art. This is my pacifism right here. This is the card that I had copies of. Pacifism, 1 and a white for an enchantment aura. It enchants a creature, and enchanted creature can't attack or block. That's some classic Magic right there. It's not particularly great, because there's so many creatures that have other effects on them, activated abilities and things, and this does nothing against those. But just generically taking out one big guy, you throw this on a Gurmag Angler or a Cryptic Serpent, or pay the extra mana and put it on Solarian Terror, and you just stop those from being threats, which is kind of nice. I think generally you end up playing something like Journey to Nowhere more, because it gets the creature completely off the table. And then they can't use their activated abilities and things like that, and that's better. They can't do anything. They can't use a fight effect or a bite effect because the creature's gone. You can still do that with a pacifism on your creature. Just last night I was playing Commander, and I have a Karlov of the Ghost Council, and it wasn't a pacifism. I can't remember what it was, but it was hey, specifically your Karlov can't attack or block, and I went, okay. I mean, the Karlov is able to get huge, so that kind of sucks that I can't attack or block with it. But also, Karlov has the effect where I'm exiling creatures. Like that's the part I really care of with Karlov, is to get rid of my opponent's stuff. And I don't care. I don't care that I can't attack or block. I still get to do the really cool thing with it. So pacifism definitely has its drawbacks, but also I love it. I love it because it's just a classic, real, normal Magic card. And also Grack. I also love Grack. We need Wizards. I'm begging you. We need legendary Grack. Make it happen. Give me a cool Grack and let him put pacifisms on other creatures. or somehow pacify himself, but when he give him something where having pacifisms on him is a good thing. I don't know. You figure it out. You're the designers, but this guy needs to show up as a commander. I want it. I want it really badly. Good job, Robert Bliss, on bringing Greg to us. It's beautiful. What do you give pacifism? I'm gonna give it a 2.5, which is a little generous, but it's pacifism. What can you do? Riptide is a single blue mana for an instant. Tap all blue creatures. Well, this costs blue, so you probably have blue creatures. So you're tapping down all of your guys? This is bad. This is bad because you're potentially tapping down all your guys, and even if you've attacked with all your guys are already all tapped anyway, or you're playing artifact creatures or something, so they won't get affected. How many creatures does this affect on your opponent's side? One, blue doesn't play a ton of creatures to begin with. It's not its general thing. Yeah, there's fairies decks and there's other decks in blue that will play creatures. I guess tapping them all down is okay, but your opponent also has to be playing blue to begin with. And they have to be probably playing mono blue for this to really get the effect that you want, which kind of only puts it down to 2 decks. It's mono blue terror and it's mono blue fairies. And both of those decks, while they're extremely good, mono blue terror is still probably the most played deck in the format. They also both have Dimir variants, and Terror has variants in so many different colors, but they have variants that will split the colors. And a color hoser card like this, and it's also not even a very good color hoser because all it does is tempo, right? You're just tapping the creatures instead of countering a spell or destroying something. So I think this is so narrow for what it needs. Pretty terrible generally. Art's cool. From the Dark gives me some nostalgia, but this card is pretty bad. I'm going to give it a 1.1. One of the worst cards we've seen for a while. Thorn Thrash Viashino is 3 and a red for a 2/2 Lizard Warrior. No longer Viashinos. It's been eroded to make them all into lizards to make them a little bit more useful for tribal-y kind of decks, kindred style decks that play with lizards as just a more generic creature type. It has Devour 2. As this creature enters, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. It enters with twice that many +1/+1 counters on it. Okay. And for a single green mana, this creature gains trample until end of turn. So the idea here is if you have a number of tiny creatures, tokens or whatever, and you sacrifice all those guys to this dude, he can get pretty big and he can become like a 10/10 relatively easily. So you get a 10/10 guy, and then for a single green mana, you can give him trample. So yeah, you got to be in Gruul, or you got to have some way of making a green mana in red, but I don't know. I have a 10/10 with trample seems pretty good to me, even if I have to re-up that trample every turn. That might be worth it. The bigger problem here is the 4 mana to begin with. So you have to have 4 mana to begin with. You have to have a bunch of creatures on the board to begin with. You need to be willing to sacrifice all those creatures. Your opponent needs to not have an immediate removal spell or like a Tithing Blade or something that's going to now that you got rid of all your other creatures and just have the one, I'm going to make you sacrifice that one too. It does leave you very vulnerable. And it requires you to have a very specific board state for this to be able to be played effectively. If you can set all those things up and protect it, this is a really good card. Setting up all those effects, you can probably just do better things with your mana and win in a more efficient or more consistent way. And you should do that instead. And that's sad because this thing is pretty cool. I will give this thing a 2.4. Next is Hard Evidence. We have done Hard Evidence. In fact, we did Hard Evidence recently, or did no. We talked about hard evidence. We compared something to hard evidence relatively recently, and then we referenced it again recently. Maybe we haven't done hard evidence. Let's do it. Let's do hard evidence. Single blue mana for a sorcery. Create a 0/3 blue crab creature token, and you investigate, which means you create a clue token. Hard evidence is great. It's a great card. Um, it's a turn one play that puts a 0/3 creature on the board. So you got a great blocker on turn one. Plus, it gives you an artifact. So if you are playing anything that cares about artifacts, refurbished familiars, and stuff like that, affinity for artifacts guys, that's an artifact on the table. It gives you 2 permanents if you care about like the city's blessing. If you care about that, you can potentially get the city's blessing faster because you're putting more stuff on the board. If you need to sacrifice fodder or something, artifacts or creatures, this gives you an artifact and a creature. This is a non-creature spell, which can also be useful for you, that makes a creature. So it's a way of kind of getting both things. You're getting a guy out of the deal, but you're also playing something that, if you have something with Magecraft, or you have to get, even something like Threshold where you want cards in your graveyard, well, this goes to your graveyard, but you still have something on the board. So you get both of those things. This works for something like Tolarian Terror that wants instants and sorceries in your graveyard. I don't actually ever see it in Mono Blue Terror, but I don't know why not. Like the Delver of Secrets, yeah, it can become a flyer that can get in for a little bit of damage, and I guess it gives you some kind of cards. Yeah, I guess that one's slightly better in most instances, but you could also just play hard evidence on turn one, have a blocker, and now have a sorcery in your graveyard, so you're already getting closer to your Tolarian Terror. It's something to consider. And then the clue token is just a potential drawn card down the line. So you get so much value out of this, and there's so many reasons you might want to play a card like Hard Evidence. It's really good. And then the thing I haven't even mentioned yet, which is the real reason a lot of people play Hard Evidence these days, is you have the spell Abjure, which is a single blue mana that, as an additional cost, you have to sacrifice a blue permanent, but it counters a spell. It counters any spell for a single blue mana, and this crab is blue. So this is a great blocker that even when you're done using it as a blocker, it can still help you counter another spell. And Abjure is a crazy good card. So those two together are a really great combination. Hard Evidence is awesome. I really do love this card. I'm going to give this thing a... Do I want to go into 7 territory? I think 7's a little too high. I think this is a nice card, so I'm going to give it a 6.9. That's what I'm going to do. Hard Evidence, man. What a card. What a card. Next up, Fire Fright Mage. Single red mana for a 1/1 Goblin Spell Shaper. Ooh, Spell Shapers are fun. 1 and a red, you can tap and discard a card, and target creature can't be blocked this turn except by artifact creatures and or red creatures. Interesting. It is from Planar Chaos, so Planar Chaos switched up the color pie stuff a little bit. Now, this card does not have the treatment that some Planar Chaos cards do that say specifically, hey, that's a spell from another color. So this is not exactly that. It's not exactly a spell from another color, but it is saying, hey, remember fear? Remember the thing that says a creature can't be blocked except by artifact creatures or black creatures? Well, what if we made this instead? What if we made, instead of black creatures, it's red creatures and or artifact creatures? That's fun. And then that fear at some point, it was like, fear might be a little too good of an ability. And also it's a little hard to parse these days, especially once Mirrodin, or not Mirrodin, I can't remember, when did color artifact spells come into play? It was after Mirrodin. Mirrodin had artifacts with colored abilities for the first time, I think. Anyway, Whatever the case is. Like once artifact creatures became a little bit more all encompassing, then we switched to intimidate as a keyword instead of fear, so that other colors could get access to that as well. Green started getting a lot more intimidate, and then at some point they said, you know what, this ability is probably just not worth it anymore, and they kind of retired both abilities. But here you get a red style intimidate, and you have to, it's a spell shaper, so you do discard a card to be able to make a spell. Like whatever card is in your hand, that goes away, but you can transform it kind of into this red fear style effect. That's kind of cool. It's not great. You're paying, it's 1 mana for a 1/1. It is a goblin, so you are getting a 1/1 goblin out of that. There's plenty of goblin decks out there. But having to pay another 2 mana, having to lose out on card advantage, just to be able to give one of your creatures this red intimidate, especially with goblins that are mostly a go wide. There aren't a ton of giant goblins, especially at Pauper. When you get into something like Commander, you can think about Muxus, or you can think about Krenko, and those guys can get huge based on the number of goblins you have. So this is probably a better card for something like that. But this is generally not amazing in Pauper. I mean, that being said, my friend does have a Muxus deck, and I'm almost positive he doesn't have this card, and he probably needs it. So Firefright Mage. I think I'll just buy him a copy of that because, for 9 cents, I can be a good friend that way. For Pauper, though, this is not particularly good. I'm going to give this thing a 2, I think, and even that might be a little generous. Let's maybe bump it down to 1.9. It's not particularly needed. Next up is Inside Source, 2 and a white for a 1/1 human citizen. When this creature enters, you create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. You can pay 3 and tap, and target detective you control gets +2/+0 and gains vigilance until end of turn. That's interesting. I generally like these cards that make a bigger token than them. I think it was yesterday, a couple days ago, where we saw the knight that comes in. It's a 2/2 with first strike, and it makes a 1/1 soldier when it enters. And that's cool, but I think when you're thinking about like blinking and bouncing, specifically blinking, I suppose, it's nicer to have the token be bigger, because then as you blink, you get the enters trigger and you get more of the big guys, and this guy can stay small. I also just like that this has a little extra bonus ability. From a flavor perspective, an Inside Source is going to help the detective be more vigilant or figure something out or get better, get stronger with the information that it has. So actually giving your detective a real power boost and a keyword like vigilance for the turn is fun. That can work on other detectives too. There's not a ton of detectives out there, but there are changelings, I suppose. That's a pretty expensive though for that effect, especially when you can only do it at sorcery speed. Although I suppose that makes sense. You don't want to confuse somebody by giving something vigilance after it attacked and then learning, oh wait, it doesn't untap the guy. I needed to do this before combat so I can give it the vigilance. 3 mana for 3/3 stats is fine. And I do like the blink potential. It is a little expensive, though, for me to bounce, and that's probably what I really want, is like another thing that I could play in Orzhov Blade that could give me stuff. But at 3 mana, I don't really want to use my core Skyfisher to bounce this to my hand and then pay this cost again to put this back on the board. That's 5 mana for that effect is not quite as good. It's a neat card. I will end up giving this a 3.1, but it's probably not much more than that. Dwarf Hold Champion is 1 and a white for a 3/1 Dwarf Warrior. As long as this creature is equipped, it gets +0/+2. Okay, that's fine. I mean, there's lots of cheap equipments out there that you could put on this guy. For the most part, though, you have creatures that are just better when they're equipped than this. You know, we also looked at this yesterday, I think, but Skyward Spider's a 2-mana 2/2 that already comes with Ward 2, and when it's modified and equipment is being modified, it gains flying. So I think that's just a better deal. In my Boros equipments deck that I play, I also have Sun Spear Shikari, which I think is just a better card here. Also 2 mana, 2/2, and as long as it's equipped, it has First Strike and Lifelink. That's pretty good, and I think those are better than just getting a little boost to your toughness. Maybe if it said for each equipment on it, it gets 2 toughness. Maybe we could have a bit more of a discussion, but it's fine. It's fine, but it's not great. And the worst thing would be that you try to pay to equip this guy, and your opponent just plays a trickery or something that only deals a single damage, just pings this guy off the board before the equip happens, and that's a real blowout, and you feel really bad when that happens. So, yeah, I don't think it's amazing. I'm going to give it a 1.9. What do we got next? It is Twisted Spider Clone, 3 and a green for a 4/4 spider human. When this creature enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. All right, little rich get richer. This is okay. 4 mana for a 4/4. That's an okay rate, and getting to put some +1/+1 counters on creatures. It sucks that they already have to have +1/+1 counters on them. But if you've set it up in the right way, you could potentially give a lot of power and toughness on the board when you play a guy like this. It's fine. It requires a lot of setup, and this guy himself is nothing to write home about, just being basically just a vanilla 4/4. I think you can go without it, and I think you probably should. I will give this thing a 2.3. No, I'll give it a 2.4. Still don't really like it that much. Let's do a last card or bonus card. I think we're around that time. I don't know if my count has been keeping correct or not. Cruel Revival is 4 and a black for an instant. Destroy target non-zombie creature. It can't be regenerated. And return up to 1 target zombie card from your graveyard to your hand. All right. Originally from Onslaught. It's now been upshifted because this card was so good. It's not bad, though. 5 mana for a kill spell is a lot, but 5 mana for a kill spell and a Raise Dead is still probably too much, A murder is 1 double black, a Raise Dead is a single black, so you're probably paying 1 mana more than you really need to. Although, this is instant speed Raise Dead. Raise Dead's a sorcery, so having something that grabs your creature back at instant speed is okay. Now, the creature that you destroy has to be non-zombie. That's not too difficult. There's not a ton of zombies in Pauper. Really, the only place that you see them consistently is Mono Black Sacrifice. So as long as you're not playing against that deck, this should be pretty solid for you. Or Changelings, I suppose. You do always need to look out for Changelings. And then you return a zombie card from your graveyard to your hand. So you have to be playing zombies. That's probably the hoop that's a little bit more difficult. Yes, you could play Changelings too, but do you play this in Mono Black Sacrifice yourself? Because you can grab your Carrion Feeder back or some of your other creatures, Shambling Gas and stuff like that. Is it Shambling Gas? Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. The Mono Black Sacrifice creatures. I don't think you do. I don't think that deck wants something so expensive. They'd rather just play Cast Downs for the couple things they need. They have other ways of getting cards out of the graveyard if they need to. I think you're okay without this card. It's still fun, kind of cool. I'll give it a 3.1, I think. And we will call it there. Thanks for joining me, and catch you on the next one. See ya.